that are starting to emerge. And when you look at kind of the trends of what's going on in what I'll call kind of youth culture and the way that they're consuming entertainment, that younger generation is kind of moving away from traditional Bollywood, and they're consuming more of Western Hollywood type product, whether it be the Avatars of the world or kind of the big tech movies and stuff like that. So from that standpoint, everything over there from a sports standpoint is cricket, right? So what they did was they created the short form cricket, which is the IPL, which has been so successful primarily for the younger generation because they don't want to spend 5 days watching a cricket match. Now with short form cricket, they can watch a match for 3 hours. It's like watching an NFL game or something like that. You can consume that. But in addition to that, what we're finding through our research is they want alternative sports. High-paced, fast, action, all of those things. Well, UFC pretty much fits that bill, and there's nothing else really out there that we think does, because still, even if you look at basketball, there's no infrastructure, there's no basketball courts there, and there's a learning curve even with basketball, right? Figure that out. Soccer has some potential, and it's been there for a little while, but it hasn't really completely come on yet. Then you take a look at the other sports, which there's a huge learning curve with the NFL and anything else. So when you take a look at what the opportunities are, one of the things that also excites us is their kind of national sport outside of cricket is kushti. And kushti is this form of wrestling. It's essentially freestyle wrestling, but they do it in these villages, literally in the dirt. You can go on YouTube and put a kushti wrestling, and you can watch it. And they literally get hundreds of thousands of people out watching these kushti matches. And no arenas, they're just literally like rows of people behind each other, and they're communicating what's going on, what's happening. Yeah, it's like really like going back to the old days. So because of that, there's a wrestling culture. You have this youth movement looking for something new and different. And the other thing is that to be successful in the markets, you have to have, or it certainly helps, to have local talent that succeeds, right? So you look at outside of the U.S. where we've been successful. Essentially Canada, George St. Pierre, right? Brazil, as many guys as we can sit here and name. I mean, they're endless, right? The UK, you got the Michael Bispings, the Dan Hardys. That's what kind of drives those markets. So they have had a lot of success lately because they've put together this program to get kids in the Olympics. And they've actually, this last Olympics, they had 2 medalists. They've had a guy that's medaled twice in the last 2 Olympics from a freestyle wrestling standpoint. As you guys know, obviously both Greco and freestyle wrestling is very effective in mixed martial arts. So if we can use that program and the kushti background to start developing some of these guys, we actually think it might be easier than the Chinese development program that we have, right? Because, and this is just my opinion, but me and Dana talk about it all the time, wrestling is really the core base thing that you need to have to be successful in MMA. That way you can dictate kind of where the fight happens. And then building off that base, you can start to teach people how to strike and teach them about submissions or how to stay out of submissions. Whereas, if you get a guy who's in his late 20s and he's never done grappling, it's kind of hard to teach him that. You know what I mean? Teach him that base. So we're hopeful that, after we get some exposure and people get in tune with it, that, maybe 5, 6, 7 years, some fighters can start to emerge out of India. And really the first step of that is what we have been using historically to develop fighters, which is the Ultimate Fighter. So we're going to kick off the Ultimate Fighter India, which we'll start filming in the summertime and should begin to air around September. And it's going to be on the same network that carries the IPL, which does 100, 150 million viewers for a cricket game, on an average cricket game.
Wait till they see this.
Right. Well, wait till they see this. So we're going to get the exposure. We believe in our product. And in addition to that, we're going to be cross-promoted in the 2 biggest, other biggest shows on TV that they have. One is Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Everybody knows Slumdog Millionaire. It's a pretty big show over there. And Indian Idol. So kind of everything is converging, and hopefully we go from 0 to 100 real quick here.
The fighters that will be on the Ultimate Fighter, are they going to be only Indian fighters, or are you going to bring people in?
They will be only Indian fighters, but one of the things that that will include is that market, from our understanding, really accepts anybody from Indian descent. So it could be somebody that's from Indian descent, but they're from the UK. So maybe they have more of a knowledge of MMA, they've been training in MMA, Same thing, there's a big Indian population in Canada, other places like that. So they will accept that. So I think you'll see a cross-section of, guys that are from India, but also people that just have Indian heritage that maybe live in some of these other areas.
And is a UFC contract on the line? I mean, are you concerned that you won't be able to find a UFC caliber fighter?
I don't think so. I mean, certainly, listen, we won't put anybody in the UFC unless we think that they can hold their own and compete. But obviously that's one of the challenges we have is finding 16 qualified guys. Hopefully at least one or a few people emerge that can at least compete.
And Dana said some of these wrestlers, it was the first time they'd seen a UFC fight. It was yesterday.
Yeah.
What was their reaction?
They're like, I can do this in one fight.
Are they
I mean,
excited?
they're real. They kind of got that sense of pride and bravado. And these are guys that have competed at the highest level. I mean, Olympic guys that, from an international standpoint, are very, very highly regarded. Now, how long will it take them to learn to be able to compete? I guess it's kind of the same question. You take some of these guys in the U.S. It took them a couple, 3 years to kind of figure some of this stuff out. Once they had gone through high school, college, and then whether it be the Olympics or international competition, they made the transition fairly easily. But look, this is an experiment. It's work in progress. We don't know.
I know that there's a lot of money among some people in India, but then there's a tremendous amount of poverty. And so when you say there's 1 billion people, effectively, is your audience shrunk a dramatic amount because of the extreme poverty that there is?
Well, yes. I mean, as far as, when you start looking at what, is the real ability for consumers to spend money, let's say, on tickets or something
Right.
like that, our expectations are very, very low when it comes to that. But when you look at what the potential is for license fees and television rights, it's fairly interesting. I mean, the IPL has been able to generate a huge number of license fees, as has, WWE does big numbers of license fees there. So the media companies and the advertisers are trying to get to these people because you have this huge class of people that are going from poverty to kind of their middle class that do have disposable income. So, we think that there's a big opportunity, and there's 1 billion plus people there. Even if it was a quarter of the population that really has the money to spend, that's nearly as big as the U.S.
What's your take on it being a clean slate? Because obviously that seems to be challenging in the fact that you've got to introduce it, but it seems like that may be a positive in the fact that you don't have to deal with some of the things that maybe you've had to deal with in the past in terms of negativity and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think that's both an opportunity, but it's all a challenge at the same time. We did the press conference there yesterday, and it was kind of strange because it was almost like they knew so little about the UFC, they didn't even know what questions to ask. They were like, they're looking at it going, wow, that looks kind of cool, but they had no idea what was really going on. One of the other challenges I think we face is that WWE is very popular there. And I think when the consumer first sees it, they're going to think it's kind of WWE. I think a lot of people there think that WWE is actually real, believe it or not, just because they haven't seen what is real.
Right.
And I think when they see the UFC, they're going to be like, wow, that's real and WWE is not real. So it's going to...
Does Brock being there then help you? Because at least it gives
Sure, I can't hurt us, right? It can't hurt us. But it's going to be interesting.
Well, when you show these athletes, these wrestlers, like you're saying, video for the first time, I mean, how do you introduce them? What'd you actually show them, I guess?
Well, we showed them some of our kind of sizzle reels, highlight reels. We pulled up a couple of fights to show them some different examples and things like that. And they weren't fazed at all. Like I said before, they thought it was kind of interesting. They were asking a few questions relative to the rules. That was the biggest thing, is kind of understanding and using translators to try to explain to them how the rules work and so on and so forth. But look, we got to get them. We got to get them out here. We got to get them rolling around with some of the best guys and just see how they take to it.
Was that surprising that, I mean, even these guys, they're world-class wrestlers, world-class athletes, that they weren't even familiar with you guys at all?
It's surprising, but when you think about, the more I learn about India and understand kind of how India works, I mean, it's not that surprising, because these guys literally live in villages that are just, they're kind of out of touch with what's going on. They just, it's not the same thing. But look, I think with the platform we have, and once this thing really starts to kick in, and when the Ultimate Fighter launches, I think it'll pretty quick, people are going to know what it is.
Can you explain what you meant when you said it might be easier to go there than China in terms of development?
Well, a lot of different reasons. One, there's much less government regulation there when it comes to doing business, okay, and censorship on TV and all those kind of things. Two, there is like I said before, long history of wrestling in that market. So just by nature, they like to watch, they like wrestling. I don't mean fake wrestling.
Right.
I mean like, competitive wrestling. So, you start to get past that whole idea that, people don't like fights that go to the ground and things like that. I think they'll appreciate that and they'll understand that. Then obviously, throwing punches and everybody around the world gets that. And they've actually had some success in the Olympics of boxing recently, as well as the Commonwealth Games. So, there's a whole boxing kind of movement coming on too.
In an ideal world, how soon could India see a live UFC event there? Would the finale be there?
Yeah,
I guess
the finale will be the first one. So
Right.
that will be sometime in the fourth quarter of next year. Yeah, that would be the first go round. Other challenges there is there's not a lot of great venues, so we're right now trying to figure out how we're going to do that because indoor sports don't really exist there. Everything's kind of outdoors with cricket. There's no real basketball.
Didn't you set that up in Abu Dhabi and you showed you could do it?
Yeah, but Abu Dhabi paid for it. It was really expensive. Right.
But Dana always talks about the live event being the infectious, thing,
Yeah.
the thing that captivates people. So does that remain the core philosophy, or do you think the Ultimate Fighter and TV is enough to captivate a new market?
No, listen, we believe that in order to really build a sustainable long-term business, you have to have product in the market, right? And it's very difficult for us to build a business when our product is coming on at 6 in the morning there, right? It's just an odd thing. You can imagine trying to build a business here in the U.S. It doesn't work. So we've got to bring the product there, but then we also have to get past the fact that we kind of have this hit and run strategy. Go to stock when we kill it, and then we're not back until when? I don't even know. We don't have anything scheduled. So how do we build a sustainable program with fight series in prime time in relevant cities that make sense on an ongoing basis? So for instance, working on the game plan for next year in Brazil. Outside of just the pay-per-views we'll probably do 5 or 6 fights there. They're kind of ultimate fight night type things. And that's how we built the sustainable program here in the U.S. is when we went from not just having pay-per-view, but having fights on free TV. We originally started on Spike with Ultimate Fight Night, just to have that sustainability in the marketplace. We got to figure out how to do that in Europe, do it in Asia, and do it in South America.
Is there a concern because UFC fans are interesting? They feel like they need to watch everything. Like the hardcores need to see like every fight. You launch a new Ultimate Fighter and they say, "Are we going to be able to watch that? Are we going to be able to watch that?" I mean, so as you move forward, do you still envision to where all these fights are available to American fans, to U.S.-based fans, to people that want to watch it, or do you shy away from that?
No, well, look, at the end of the day, with the way technology is, media is consumed through technology, for the crazy hardcore fans that want to watch Indian fighters, on the Ultimate Fighter, we'll figure out a way to make it available. I mean, are you going to see it on FX? No. But, if you want to consume it, we'll put it out there for you.
Wasn't there some kind of a plan to put all the Ultimate Fighters against each other at the end at one point?
Well, down the road, that's something Dana's talked about is, if we could figure out once we get enough of them rolling,
Right.
maybe actually launch them at a similar time, and then you have kind of this pyramid effect where over a year's period you have the ultimate tournament, right? Literally crown the ultimate fighter for the whole world. So yeah, I mean, that's something that could be put together. Could be pretty interesting.
Who are the coaches? Did I miss something very obvious here? Who are the coaches?
We don't know yet.
Will they be American fighters?
We don't know that either.
Because no one will know who those guys are, right? I mean, you can take big stars and India won't know who they are. Right?
No.
Maybe Brian Nelson and Ken Shamrock.
You've been banished to Mumbai. Yeah, no, we're still working on the creative and all that stuff. But look, there could be some nuances to the format that stuff that works here may not work there. We just got to work through all that stuff and figure it out.